Welcome in to Greenville Grit, Greenville residents in touch on 103.7 WTIB. This is the local show that keeps you connected and in touch with the issues that affect what's happening in your community. Greenville Grit is sponsored by Ribeyes, Kid Construction, and Greenville Toyota. Now, here are your hosts for Greenville Grit, Terry Williams and Michael Overton.
Hello and welcome to Greenville Grit. I'm Terry Williams, and I'm here today with my co-host, PJ Conley, who is our current City Council District 5 Council Representative, and we're so pleased to have you with us today, and thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
And we're excited about our guest today. We have a volatile situation with our voter ID program, and we have our chairman of our Pitt County Board of Elections, Patrick Nelson, who's going to go through some detailed situations with us that we're facing with the voter ID. And we'll go through all of that and have some, I'm sure, good discussion and lots of questions and answers and help our citizens find out what's really going on with the voter ID situation right now, where we'll go forward for now, because we have a really big election coming up this year. It's just going to be so important that everybody gets out to vote. That's the most important thing. But they also need to know what they're facing and what they need to take with them when they go, and just where we are right now. We want to thank our sponsors very quickly and get on into this discussion because it is super important. But Greenville Toyota has been with us since the beginning, and we thank them so much for that. They can be reached to buy a new or used vehicle at greenvilletoyota.com or 252-321-3000. We also want to thank Ribeyes Steakhouse, who've been with us for a long time, too. Great, excellent food, wonderful steaks. They have other things on their menu besides steak, but obviously they're famous for their steak, and a wonderful salad bar. They have a location on Fire Tower Road and also one in Williamston, so you can visit them there. And also Overton Residential Properties. We offer all sorts of residential needs in buying a home for your family or listing a home for sale. Trey, myself, and Michelle Connor can help you at any time. You can contact us on our website at overtonresidential.com, or you can call us at 252-375-8620, and we'll be glad to help you. So I want us to move right into this conversation. We were talking about it a little bit before we were getting started, and it just seems like an issue that is affecting all of us in ways that we would not have thought would be quite as serious, although I know that it's a serious issue, but you were explaining to us it's almost getting a little out of hand in some sorts of ways. So explain a little bit where we are right now with the situation with voter ID. I'd say, I guess, in the last maybe 6 months. How has this come about to where we are right now?
In 2013, the General Assembly made some changes to election laws, well publicized. You know about it. One was requiring photo ID,
That's right.
Shortening the early voting period from 17 days to 10 days, doing away with same-day registration, and several other changes. On July 29th of this year, the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals, a three-judge panel, ruled that those changes were unconstitutional. So the changes are gone. Photo ID is not required. We're back to 17 days of early voting. The one thing I can tell you is Election Day is November 8th. That hadn't changed. And we're going to have an election.
That's right.
But as far as photo ID is concerned, or all these changes, we're going to deal with it.
Right.
You know, whatever the law states, the Board of Elections will carry out elections according to the law.
Right.
As far as how it directly impacts us, the biggest thing is the one-stop, or popularly known as early voting.
Right.
It used to be 17 days. It was changed to 10 days. It's back to 17 days now. So we have a one-stop plan in place, and it's good for the voters. They'll have more days to vote early if they choose to.
Mm-hmm. And then there was some discussion, though, which I think brought about a lot of more discussion about the Sunday voting. We were talking about, was that, and that's not right now in place.
No, each county election board votes on a early voting schedule. They have to do it within certain parameters within those 17 days. Whether the minimum requirement is that every county has to have one site open Monday through Friday during business hours, 8 to 5. That's the minimum requirement. And some of our smaller counties actually have a schedule like that. If you've got 10,000 voters, that may well work well. If you've got over 100,000 voters, especially if voters are accustomed to it, that wouldn't work too well.
Right.
So in Pitt County, we have a full schedule of 7 locations, but the Sunday voting or weekends in general, the hours are left to each respective county. I don't mind telling you, I've never been in favor of Sunday voting, and I have several reasons for that. This idea of Sunday voting first came up in 2008, and I opposed it then. I've never been in favor of Sunday voting, and I'm not now. Honestly, it never dawned on me that there was anything racial about it. But I have since learned that by not having Sunday voting, I'm being branded a racist and a bigot. It honestly never occurred to me.
And why? Why? I don't understand why they would even think that.
And I'm still learning all this.
Yeah.
There is a campaign in some counties by the Democratic Party called Souls to the Polls, where predominantly African American churches will bus people in after church to vote on Sunday. So by not having Sunday voting, the allegation is that we're disenfranchising African American voters. That's what Congressman Butterfield said anyway.
But we've never had Sunday voting.
Yes. Oh, yes.
We have had Sunday
in Pitt
voting
County,
before.
yes.
When did we have
2008, 2010, and 2012.
Okay, I just don't remember.
Yes.
I would never vote on Sunday, so I just hadn't thought about it.
It was a big to-do. I voted against it all 3 of those years. I was never in favor of it. This year, in 2014, it was not an issue.
Right.
In 2014, the Pitt County Board voted on a one-stop plan that did not include Sunday voting. It was not an issue. The Pitt County Board of Elections met again this year on May the 24th to vote on a one-stop plan for the November election. We didn't have Sunday voting then. This was back in May.
Right.
We voted on a plan that did not include Sunday voting. We voted on a very good plan, 7 locations, all 7 locations open from 8:30 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. Monday through Saturday. The 7 locations strategically spread out throughout the county so that all communities can be served.
Right.
It was not an issue. But what happened on July the 29th, the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals, and that's 3 judges, 3 individuals, said that North Carolina's voter laws were unconstitutional. So we had to scrap it. So now we had to go back to the drawing board and redo our one-stop plan. Now, I was of the opinion we've already voted on a plan. We were unanimous. Let's just, as much as possible, keep that same plan in place that we all agreed on, but add 7 days to it.
Right.
But the Democratic Party, the state Democratic Party, sent out an email to all of their activists and operatives, and I've got a copy of that email, and they were asking that all of their people come to the board meetings. And they did in Pitt County. They came. We met a week ago today, and they were there to, I started to say request. That's kind of light. I would say more like demand that we have the polls open on Sunday. I voted against it. Our board secretary, Mark Stewart, voted against it, and the other board member, he wanted Sunday. So that's where the split came in.
I see.
I tell you, this year has been very, very unique, and I think that you're in a very unique position of what you've had to deal with the the June primary that took place,
Right.
and me being a finance guy, I'm all about numbers. I know that I don't know if people understand how much it costs, to make these changes and to put on these elections, and finance-wise, do you know how much it's going to affect, I guess, the budget to be able to make implement these changes?
The plan that we approved, because of the additional days, is going to cost about $39,000 more than the previous plan that had been approved.
Wow.
With adding back the 7 days,
Yes.
but not including the Sundays at this point.
There's no
Doesn't
Sundays.
include any Sundays.
No, but what we did approve is going to be about $39,000 over what we had previously budgeted for.
So this is probably maybe too technical to even ask the question, but was there specifics that they found unconstitutional? I mean, what is...
I can tell you what their opinion was. I don't agree with it.
Yeah. I just don't really understand how they can move. Certainly, has this not been like a 3-year advance notice to get your voter ID in place?
Yeah.
And, I mean, even if they didn't get it yet, they waited too long. Even if it got changed and they already had their ID,
right,
they waited so long.
Well, when the law was first passed, and there were a number of changes to election law, the photo ID is the most prominent. That's what you
Right.
hear about most often, but there were several changes. But the photo ID requirement was actually modified a year ago, or in June of 2015, the General Assembly modified it to say that if you signed an affidavit stating a reasonable impediment to receiving a photo ID, you could still vote a provisional ballot.
Right.
And on top of that, 3 years, if there were people, and they say there are some people that legitimately don't have some form of ID, they knew 3 years ago. They had 3 years to get
Right.
form of ID, and the state would pay for it.
Right.
But look, I'm not here to discuss the merits of photo ID.
Right.
We'll deal with it if we have to. If we have it or we don't. But I am a little peeved about our meeting last week.
Right. That's what I'm concerned about.
I don't mind citizen input, but it bothers me when I'm accused of being a bigot and a racist.
Right.
Mark and I literally have received threats of violence.
Right.
Never in 1,000 years did I think that a election board member would be receiving. City council members probably don't get threats of violence too often, but I've been on the board for over 20 years, and if you had told me that I would be receiving threats of violence, I never would have believed it. I might not would have served.
Right.
Yeah, no, that's completely inappropriate, and with
agree.
the position you're in, I mean, you're looking out for the best, and I think all three of us can sit up here and say, the whole action is not to prevent people from voting. Everybody is entitled to vote, and I don't think the actions merit that this is the plan, I guess, more or less, was to limit it. But, when you invoke violence into, people that have been appointed or elected into the position, that's just not right, in my opinion. And I know you've been through a tough time, and we appreciate everything that you've done. But you can see clearly that when you rally several people to come there, they do have influence, and you've seen that throughout the state with different situations that have come up. And I appreciate the fact that you are in the position you are in right now, and you're doing a great job. Do you have any idea if there's going to be another ruling? I think I read something in the paper a while ago as far as the voter ID with the Supreme Court. I think Judge Roberts, I read something on the 20th. They had requested by the 25th.
Governor McCory sent a request to the Chief Justice requesting a stay. Is that right, Mark? So, we'll see. Whatever the courts decide, we'll deal with it.
Right.
But all we can do at this time is plan for the election based on the rules that are in place, and that's what we're doing. And let me say this too. One of the accusations was that the Pitt County Board of Elections, namely Mark Stewart and me, were trying to suppress the vote. Now, I take great offense at that comment.
Right.
I have a pretty darn good track record on this board. And I have a lot of friends in this community, in the Democratic Party, in the African American community. We don't always see eye to eye, but nobody's ever accused me of trying to suppress anyone's vote.
Right.
I have bent over backwards, and I give of my time in this role to make sure that people can vote. I feel like I'm engaged in a fight now, and this wasn't a fight that I was looking for, but I'm engaged in this fight now.
Right.
So,
I think it bothers me, too, that instead of working out the issues of whatever comes up these days, everything always goes to race. I don't know why we have to, as a society or whatever you want to call it, they always blame it on the race card instead of figuring out what the real problem is.
Because that shuts down debate.
That's right.
And let me say this, I'm not speaking with a broad brush. I have friends in every community, and not every African American plays that race card,
Right.
but that vocal minority, they know that once that race card is injected in the conversation, that'll shut down
Right.
debate, and that's what they want to do. They want to shut down
Right.
debate.
Instead of talk about it and find out how to figure it out a better way.
But I'm against Sunday voting. This is not new. I've always been against Sunday voting, and I've articulated my reasons for that.
Right.
There's several. But let me say this, to those that say that the Pitt County Board of Elections is trying to stifle people's ability to vote, in the last presidential election, which was November of 2012, in Pitt County, we had 5 early voting sites for a total voting hours of 500. I've got it here. I should have it memorized by now. Okay, in 2012, the last presidential election, Pitt County had 5 early voting sites for a total of 545 early voting hours. The plan that was approved by Mark Stewart and me has 7 locations and 831 hours. Pitt County has never had a better one-stop plan. There's 7 sites. They're open Monday through Saturday, 8:30 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. And then the last Saturday, it shuts down at 1 o'clock. But 3.5 full Saturdays.
That's right.
You can also vote by mail. It used to be, now let's go back prior to 2000, before we had early voting. As you well remember, Terry, it used to be you had to vote on Election Day.
Right.
That was your only option. You had to vote at your assigned precinct on Election Day between 6:30 a.m. and 7:30 p.m. And if you didn't do that, you could vote by mail if you were signing an affidavit stating you were out of town on Election Day or disabled, and a couple other.
Right.
You had to meet one of several criteria. Today, you can vote by mail for no other reason that you don't want to leave your house. It's called no excuse absentee voting. You've got 60 days to vote by mail. You can go to one of 7 locations throughout the county, 8:30 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. Monday through Saturday. Or if you're an old traditionalist, you can still go to your precinct on November 8th and vote between 6:30 a.m. and 7:30 p.m. People that want to vote are going to vote. And I'm criticized for making that statement sometimes.
But it's the truth. It is the truth.
I do not believe. Now, I'm 55 years old, Terry. I have never, ever missed voting in an election since I was eligible when I turned 18. If it was a second primary, if that was the only thing on the ballot, if it was a bond referendum, if it was something I'm eligible to vote for, I've always voted. So I have trouble buying into this argument that people can't get to the polls.
Exactly. I agree. I think we need to take a break real quick right now, and we'll come back and finish this very good discussion on the voter ID and just voting, about everything that we need to discuss about the voting situation. We'll be right back. Welcome back to our discussion today with Patrick Nelson, who's the chairman of our Pitt County Board of Elections. It's been great information. We've had a lot going on since July 29th and since last week, it sounds like, and it's disturbing what you all have had to go through to get us where we are today. There's a couple of other things I wanted to bring up, which I brought up a little bit in the break, but if you'll tell us a little bit about it. When they voted, I guess, about the voter ID having to have that requirement, that did away with the same-day registration, and now that's back.
That's back, yes. Now, same-day registration is not something that's been around for years and years and years.
Right.
That was implemented by the General Assembly in 2008.
Okay.
What that does, it allows an unregistered person to go to an early voting site, not on Election Day, but during one stop, you can go to a polling place and register to vote, and then vote all at the same time.
Okay.
It's
So what do they take with them in order to register? Don't they have to have some form of ID to register to vote?
If you're a first-time registrant, you do have to have some sort of ID.
Okay.
However, I'll tell you the biggest problem I see with, and look, I want to make it as easy as we possibly can for voters. That's always been my position. That's why we have such a good one-stop plan in the county. Listen, I've been through 5 presidential elections. If the Lord lets me live till November, this will be my 6th presidential election. And I don't want to have long lines.
Right.
I want to make things as easy as we possibly can. And same-day registration is the law of the land. We'll implement it. We'll deal with it. We have been. But I don't mind telling you the problem with same-day registration. When a person shows up to register, when a person comes to register to vote, their registration is turned into the Board of Elections. It's processed. Then the Board of Elections sends a voter card to the person. Now, suppose that voter card comes back undeliverable. Well, we can only surmise they gave bad information.
Right.
Well, the Board of Elections sends a second card. If it comes back the second time, that person's registration is then null and void. But what if they've already voted?
Right.
And what if the canvass has already taken place and that vote has now counted? Guess what? It's too late.
It's too late.
Now, it happens. It happens in Pitt County. It happens in every county. Now, is it voter fraud? I don't know. Maybe the person didn't intend to give bad information.
Right.
I don't know, but it happens.
Yeah, that's not good. That's not good for that to happen. You had one more comment that you wanted to talk about a little bit about the ECU.
At our
college.
meeting last week, it was a room full of about 50 activists, including 7 or 8 from the ECU College Democrats. And they wanted a site on campus, early voting site. Now, we had a site, well, first of all, we've had numerous sites on campus down through the years. We've tried a lot of different places.
Right.
They were always problematic. In 2012, during the November presidential, we had a site at Mendenhall Student Center. I voted against it. I didn't think it was a good site, but I was outvoted at the time.
Right.
We had a site on campus. It was upstairs at Mendenhall. Now, I've never been opposed to a site on campus per se if it's a site that's accessible to the general public.
Right.
I've never believed that we should have a site that is there simply to cater to any one group, be it students,
Right.
be it whoever. But that's what they wanted in 2012, and that's what we had. It was upstairs. The law states you're supposed to have curbside voting. Now, we called ourselves having curbside. If I'd been a lawyer wanting to sue somebody, I would have sued over that.
Right.
But this year they wanted it back at Mendenhall. I pointed out that the Willis building is, it's not right smack dab in the middle of campus. It's on First Street. It's an excellent location, and it's accessible to the general public. That's why I worked hard to get the Willis building as a one-stop.
Exactly.
But I was told by this 6 or 7 college students that Willis building was not convenient, that many students didn't know where it was, and they couldn't get there. And I even heard some of them say that if you don't have a site on campus, you're disenfranchising students, and many won't be able to vote. Now, let me say this. I know a lot of college students. I know a lot of young people, and thank God they're not speaking for the majority. But I would be embarrassed to make a statement like that.
Right, exactly. I know.
But it speaks to a much greater problem.
You're right. Hold that thought a minute. We need to take a quick break, and we'll be right back to finish up our conversation on this voter situation. Welcome back to Greenville Grit. We've been discussing the voter situation. I don't even know what to call it. It's just such a conglomeration of issues that I just don't even know what the situation should be called. But we've been very well informed. PJ, you've got some thoughts on this last that we were talking about with the ECU students.
Yeah, one of the things that you brought up, some of the students were saying that they were unaware of where they needed to vote. And, one of the things I said at the break was, recently, about a year and 2 months or so ago, I moved, and I moved to a different area. I was in the Winterville side of Greenville and moved to inside the Greenville zip code. And one of the things I did was I had to to exercise my right to vote, I had to go find my polling station. That's just something that you do. I mean, we've
right.
Every person is allowed to vote over the age of 18, and you have the right. You need to find out where your polling place is. So to say it's an excuse that it's inconvenient or you don't know where it is, that's not a good excuse in my opinion.
No, not in this day and age. It's not.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
It comes down to rights versus responsibilities. You got to have both.
That's right.
It seems like the political divide, the one side trumpets rights, and I'm all for that. But then there's also responsibilities.
That's right.
And they don't talk about the responsibility side of it.
Absolutely.
That's exactly right. Well, this has been a great discussion, and I really will encourage everyone to listen to your comments on our show. We replay our show on Friday nights at 6:30 and Saturday mornings at 9:30, and listen to it. And if they have questions, to call you and ask you these questions, and go on the website. That's why I can't believe the ECU students say Google everything else. Google your poll sites, where you go to vote, and what you need to do.
And I went on the ECU College Democrats webpage, and they had what I'm sharing with you. I'm not making this up, man.
Right.
They've got on their website that this is disenfranchisement, that without a site on campus, then many students will not be able to vote. Now, they can vote. They got 17 days.
Right. And
But here again, they're not speaking for all college students.
Right.
I talked to a young college student just before I came here who is very responsible. They're not all like that, thank God.
Right, that's right. We do have some that are very responsible. Citizens, please get out and vote. It's going to be so important. And I want to thank our sponsors again today, Greenville Toyota, Ribeye Steakhouse, and Overton Residential Properties. We thank them. We thank you all for being here and giving your time, and we appreciate your service, too, to our community for what you do. I don't think that people really realize what it takes to serve, and what you're going through right now is just such an ordeal for you, and there is a suffering for that. So thank you very much again for serving. We appreciate it. And please join us again. Thank you for joining the Greenville Grit.